Every year, thousands of bills are submitted to Congress for consideration, and only a few of them ever become laws. And so we need to look at what happens between the creation of a bill and how that eventually becomes a law. And the first step when a bill is introduced to Congress is it gets sent to a committee. So let's look at what congressional committees are, why we have them, what they do. So why does Congress have committees? Really, it's just to handle the large number of bills that are proposed every year. If the whole House and the whole Senate had to consider every single bill that was introduced, they really wouldn't be able to get through everything. So they kind of send these bills off to different committees so the committees can focus on those specific issues. That way, if you're on a committee for a certain topic, like education, let's say, you maybe over time build up a lot of experience in looking at education bills, and so you can quickly look at a bill and see, is this a worthy bill? Is this something that's going to pass? And if not, the bill just dies in committee, and that way the whole House or Senate doesn't have to commit their time to it. Another example, if you're on the Foreign Relations Committee, you might be more interested in our relations with foreign nations or these international issues, and so you're going to have a more of a passion maybe for these bills and have a better eye for looking at them and considering what's in the bill. We're going to look at 4 different types of committees. We're going to start with standing committees. These are really the ones that do the bulk of the work. And standing just means that they are permanent. They're still allowed to sit down. These are permanent groups that oversee bills that deal with specific issues. Again, we're going to stick with the Senate Committee on Foreign Relations as our example here. So these committees deal with things that, any bill that might deal with how we relate to other countries in the world. These committees then, there's 21, I believe, members of the Foreign Relations Committee, and that committee is then divided up even more into subcommittees who look at specific areas of policy. So we can see we have some examples here of the Subcommittee on Africa and Global Health Policy. And there's different subcommittees pretty much for every region of the world. And then they also deal with some other international issues. So this is just a way to help these committee members specialize and look at bills that deal with specific content areas. Another important committee, standing committees are the big ones. Conference committees are also really important, especially when we're talking about how a bill gets made. These are committees that only form when the House and Senate are working on a bill for a certain issue, let's say that it is for education funding. Let's say the House bill and the Senate bill are slightly different. Well, they can't send those 2 different bills to the president, and the president would get to pick one, I guess, but we don't want the president to have that power. We want that to be Congress comes out with one single bill that the president can either sign or veto. So if the House and Senate pass different versions of the same bill, the conference committee meets, and this will be different people each time. And a conference committee will come up with a compromise bill, hopefully. If not, then the bill will die in conference committee. But these are made up of members of the House and Senate. So these are different from most other committees, which are either just all House members or all Senate members. And so this way, the conference committee comes up with a new bill that tries to compromise between the House and Senate versions. And so that new bill that comes out of conference committee does not immediately go to the president. It has to go back to the House and back to the Senate, and they have to vote on this new bill. And if any changes are made at that point, then a new conference committee would be needed. There's no way for a House and Senate to have different versions of the same bill and have it get out of Congress. So conference committees are very important. There are a couple other types of committees. There are special and select committees. These could be temporary or permanent. We're talking about select committees. These are usually created to address a problem that might come up that's not covered by a standing committee. So if some new issue comes up and it doesn't really fall under any of our permanent standing committees, they may form a special or select committee to look at that. Joint committees are kind of like conference committees in that they are made up of people from the House and Senate together. They focus on specific issues. Their current joint committees are economic, library, printing, and taxation. They're not super powerful though. Typically things that are very important are going through a standing committee. Senators and House members really want to be on standing committees that have lots of power. So those are the ones that really have that influence. Let's take a look. I found a page that has a list of some of the current committees that we have in the Senate and the House. This is courtesy of govtrack.us. So we can see a list of Senate and House committees. You can see the different topics. There's lots of committees and they look at lots of different issues. Committees also will hold investigations and look into things and hear testimony. The famous example recently of the Kavanaugh Supreme Court hearings, that was the Senate Judiciary Committee right here that looks at appointments to federal judges and Supreme Court judges. So they're not only working on bills, they also do a lot of oversight, which is that power Congress has to look at what the executive is doing and keep an eye on things and hold investigations. So as you can see, lots of different committees. Here's some joint committees currently that exist right now. So again, if you want to go to govtrack.us, you can check that. If you have any questions about committees, be sure to reach out to your government teacher. We always enjoy talking to you, so thank you for watching.